I've been in law enforcement for about 14 years, and I've seen just about everything from homicides to petty thefts. But there's one call from early in my career that clings to my mind like a shadow. It was a hot summer night, the kind that wraps around you like a damp, oppressive blanket, in the city of Rosenberg, just south of Houston, Texas. I was on night shift patrolling the quiet streets, which almost felt too still. Midnight came, and with it, the sharp crackle of dispatch shattered the night's eerie calm. I was assigned to a death notification for a woman named Susan, who had tragically been involved in a fatal car crash just outside of the city limits. The thought of delivering such devastating news made my stomach churn. Death notifications are a burden for most officers. It's like carrying the weight that crushes your chest, knowing that you're about to shatter someone's world. The address sent me to the outskirts of town, into a remote area where the trees grew thick and tall, as if they were guarding long-buried secrets. As I approached, darkness surrounded the property in a suffocating way. A long, windy dirt driveway snaked through the trees, leading to a house that loomed in the shadows, creaking and groaning like an old woman's breath. The gate was slightly open, moaning softly on its rusted hinges as I pushed it in, the sound echoing through the stillness. I drove about 25 yards in, my headlights cutting through the darkness. That's when I spotted her, an older woman in a tattered nightgown, her silhouette barely visible against the backdrop of the night. She moved slowly towards me, her frail frame almost ghost-like, as if she had slipped through the cracks of reality. I stopped my patrol car. The engine's hum faded into the background. I asked her if she had a moment to speak. As she turned her weary gaze towards me, her tired eyes seemed to hold the weight of countless sorrows. "I heard you coming from far away," she said, her voice a raspy whisper that gave me chills. She declined my offer for a ride back and continued her slow approach towards the house, her footsteps muffled against the earth. I drove up to the porch, the wooden steps creaking ominously beneath my weight with every step that I took. The porch light flickered above me, casting creepy shadows that danced around the edges of my vision, making the air feel thick with unspoken tension. Just as I began to scan the dim driveway for the older woman, the front door creaked open with a haunting groan. A woman in her 30s stood there, worry etched across her face. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Her voice strained as if she sensed the darkness had loomed over us. I introduced myself and requested to speak with her and her family inside. She introduced herself as Mary and welcomed me in, but a gnawing instinct held me back. I glanced over my shoulder towards the driveway, unease prickling at my skin. "I'll wait for the woman I saw near the gate," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mary's expression shifted to confusion. "Nobody else is here," she replied, her tone oddly calm, as if the words were a warning. My heart thudded in my chest, a cold sweat breaking out. I scanned the shadowy surroundings. The trees seemed to lean in closer, listening. I stepped into the dimly lit room. The air was heavy with despair. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. I asked Mary if she knew Susan. She replied, "That's my mom." Her words hung in the air as she explained that her mother had just moved in a few months back, following the passing of her father. Mary said her mother had just left for work to a retail warehouse in a neighboring county. With a lump in my throat, I delivered the news of her mother's passing. As Mary and her husband clung to one another, I turned my attention to family photos lining the walls, a gallery of smiles frozen in time. My eyes fell onto one in particular, a younger version of the woman I had seen outside. "That's her," I thought, a creeping dread washing over me like ice water. Just then, a soft voice drifted from behind me, sending a jolt of terror through my veins. My mom was a beautiful woman. I whipped around startled to find Mary lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the same photo, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. My heart plummeted. Did I just see her mother by the gate? But she died in a crash. It couldn't be. I hadn't mentioned my encounter with the older woman to Mary, the realization crashing over me like a tidal wave. The woman I had met outside was no longer alive. A frigid chill filled the room. The shadows deepened, wrapping around us like a funeral shroud. I handed Mary the traffic investigator's information. My hands were trembling as I gathered my things, still trying to process what had just happened. As I stepped outside, the air felt heavy and oppressive. the dark woods closing in around me like a predator waiting to pounce. Driving down the winding dirt road, my heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a trapped animal. I kept my eyes glued straight ahead, hoping nothing would pop out, desperate for the safety of the city lights. The memory of that older woman lingered in my mind, her spectral presence, a chilling reminder of the fragile line between life and death. I couldn't shake the feeling of that encounter, something beyond comprehension, forever haunting my thoughts, a reminder that in our line of work, we often tread on the edge of the unknown.